Our video for the course Elements of Mission and Evangelism. In this one, we're going to think about the marks of the church. So in the Nicene Creed from the 4th century, these 4 things were said about the church: that it is one, that it is holy, that it is Catholic, and that it is apostolic. And we're going to think about how these might relate to mission. So the point is that they don't immediately tell us about mission, and they don't immediately tell us about the life of the church that we know right now. The church does not always look like it is one, like it is united, but that's not quite the point of what they're saying. They are offering us goals to aim at. We're not there yet as a church that is one or united. It's a direction of travel, so that we are called to aim for oneness and unity as a reflection of God's reconciling work in the world. That is, because God is trying to bring about unity in the world, so the church should reflect that in its mission and in its life. But that raises all sorts of questions. What does it mean to be one, to be united? What model of unity should we be aiming for? And various different models of unity have been offered through the ages. So first of all, you can have an imperialist model of unity, where a very sort of powerful centre of the church would dictate the terms of unity, saying it's unity on our terms. So church is very much entangled with empire. We're very much like this, sort of like saying this is how the church should be. That leaves little room for dissent and difference and diversity. Well, there's another model called the Platonic, influenced by the philosopher Plato, who understands things as being different between how we experience things and the ideal which exists at a sort of more ideal level. And so in this one, it sort of says, yeah, the church as we experience it is not united, but there is an ideal which does exist and that we sort of grow into. The third model is the biological model, a bit like a tree. If you think about, okay, on the one hand, there are many different sorts of church now, tens of thousands of denominations, even amongst Pentecostalism itself, but it's such a wide variety of churches. But we all share common roots, so we have a biological unity. We are connected to each other in our DNA because we come out of the same roots. Or you can have organic unity, which is where churches aim to unite with each other institutionally. So one kind of church merges with another. For instance, many Congregational churches and many Presbyterian churches joined together to form the United Reformed Church in the 1970s. So organic unity is that coming together of institutions, which some churches still seek. Or you can have a model that's called the federal model, where you sort of hold diversity together in unity. You recognise that diverse ways of being church is perfectly legitimate, and you seek to hold them together by faith. The word federal is rooted in the Latin word for faith. So it's by faith you trust that there is a unity even while living with diversity. Unity in diversity. So there's many different models for unity, but the idea is that according to the creed, we are called to be one, and so we move towards a greater, more visible sense of unity with each other. You might like to think about what model you're drawn to there. So if you think about the other marks of the church in the creed, holy. Again, we're not holy yet. We are sometimes, we manage it in glimpses perhaps. But we're not there. It's a direction of travel. Once again, we're aiming for greater holiness as a reflection of God's holiness. So that's, again, the idea that God is holy, first of all, and calls the church to grow into holiness. And holiness has a number of different levels, actually. It can mean sort of an ethical holiness, a purity in our actions. It can mean a sort of being vocationally set apart to do something different in the world, or it can mean being in tune with God's mysterious otherness. In all of those things, we're called to be holy. Or we're also called to be Catholic. Of course, that became particularly associated with the Roman Catholic tradition, but actually that's not what's going on here in terms of the creed. It's saying about Catholicity is about being all-encompassing for as many different diverse groups of people as possible. So we're not there yet. We're not fully embodied in the life of the rich diversity of humanity. It's a direction of travel. We aim to become ever more Catholic, to be in amongst people who are generally diverse from one another. Why? Because that is a reflection of God's all-embracing, God's Catholic love. God has love for all sorts of people, so we should express that love in the life of the church. That clearly gives us a missional dimension. And the fourth mark of the church is to be apostolic. Again, we're not exactly there yet. It's something we are moving towards, growing into, aiming for a reflection of God's apostolic calling. Of course, the apostles were people who were sent by Jesus into the world. So we're to be truly apostolic is to share in that same sense of being sent into the world, something we grow into. But let's just ponder a couple of issues around these marks for a moment. So first of all, that there are tensions between the different marks. On the one hand, we're called to be one, which is to be united. And on the other hand, we're called to be Catholic, which is to be diverse. And those things sit in some tension with each other. To hold together unity, what is it that binds us together? And also to be diverse, to allow for and recognise and to affirm real variety. But how much variety is legitimate? These are the sorts of questions that the church sometimes wrestles with. On the other hand, the other two marks of the church also in a little bit of tension with each other. To be holy is to be set apart, to be distinctive, and on the other hand, to be sent is to be in the midst of other people, to sort of be where other people are. So distinct and in amongst. These things are in some tension with each other, and perhaps that explains some of the tensions in mission as well. But there's also a tension even within a mark of the church. And let's just think about oneness in a little bit more detail. So oneness is about, recognizing and affirming the things that unite us. What is it that holds us together as the church? And sometimes unity has been emphasized to such an extent that it has been at the expense of justice. So if we give, for example, the churches in South Africa during the apartheid era, there was such a strong emphasis on those apartheid churches on sort of assuming unity, presuming unity, that as though we are already united, we don't need to sort of struggle for difference and so on, because there's already we are bound together in Christ. But this was a way of suppressing and silencing dissent, of stopping people from pushing for justice. And so justice becomes a challenge to those who say, well, we're already united. We're already one big happy family, because it did not feel like one big happy family for black people. And so justice becomes a dynamic that pushes against the claims for unity. Another example would be the movement, which particularly began in the Roman Catholic tradition, but also connected beyond it, called Women Church, which was a way of saying that the unity in the church has so much been determined by men. Men have determined what it means to be united and what are the things that bind us together, male power and male norms. So Women Church was a movement that said, this isn't really unity. This is unity on men's terms. So we want a different way of doing church. So I say Women's Church was a movement, particularly in the 1970s and 1980s, that pushed for change and offered new spaces that were not so hierarchical, new images where people gathered together as though the church was a kitchen table where they could share together as equals and bringing the ordinary things of life, and even exploring new rituals to express their love and commitment to each other in different ways. As a distinct movement, Women's Church sort of doesn't quite exist in the same way now, but was very much an influential pressure group and movement within some of the hierarchical traditions. Or deaf church raises interesting questions. People who are deaf find it understandably really hard to go to mainstream churches because there is no signing. So deaf people often have to form their own churches, which are deaf church. And this shows that where churches assume they are united, they are still leaving some people out. Here, according to ableism. taking for granted that people who are able-bodied determine the basis of unity. So deaf church, the sheer fact of deaf church raises the question about, well, united on whose terms? Similarly with Open Table, which is a space specifically that is safe for LGBTQ people, a different way of doing church which welcomes LGBTQ people, because again, many churches assume or speak of unity, but it's unity often at the expense of the full inclusion of LGBTQ people. So these claims to unity are really interesting. On the one hand, we really like the idea of it, but who gets to decide the boundaries of unity? Who gets to decide who is included in the unity? And so each of those movements also show that there is a pursuit of true Catholicity at the same time. To be united, yes, but united while leaving some people out, well, that means we're not fully Catholic either. So basically, there can't be true unity without justice. In order to be fully united, there has to be justice which allows people to be more fully included, and no justice without true recognition of diversity. So diversity, justice, and unity, they need and feed each other. So perhaps you can see how oneness implies mission, in the sense that it is a direction of travel towards unity in the world and in the church. That to become ever more united gives us a sense of breaking down the barriers between people. So to pursue unity is also to seek justice, a fairness where everyone's voice, everyone's dignity and humanity is recognised. Interestingly, the theologian Jürgen Moltmann spoke about oneness as the call to be ecumenical, the call to be a movement that is for all sorts of Christians united together as a witness to God's reconciling work in the world. That God is a reconciler, breaking through the barriers that have kept us apart. And for me, in Holy Anarchy, my book, I argue that we're called to be united around a shared commitment to being anarchic, where archy is rule over. So anarchy is a space where no one gets to rule over other people. Instead, it's a space of mutuality, of equality, of being in relationship with each other, turning upside down the power dynamics which hold people in place in the world. Because that's the true nature of God's kingdom. When it comes, it subverts and disrupts the power dynamics of our world. So that's what gives us our unity, that shared commitment to turn the world upside down. That's another way of seeing it. When we come together in class, we'll discuss some of these things a little bit, and we'll take one or two of them a little bit further.